Hello. I think I'm live. If you can hear me, would you please say something in the chat box for me? And you can only chat. Oh, hi Ellen. Okay, you can hear me and see me, okay? Hello. I gotta turn off my tablet. I think I'm live. If you can hear me, would you please say... Okay. This is my first YouTube live in a few years, so... there's so much to do to get ready for it and to set it up. Oh my goodness. This is why the future classes are not going to be on YouTube Live. They're going to be on Zoom. So I'm a little early. I'm just going to wait one more minute so that everybody can jump on. Talk amongst yourselves. Say hi to everybody. Hi, Teresa. You made it. All right, so we have people jumping on. I'll just give it a few more seconds. And just in case you missed it, you do have to be a subscriber in order to chat. You have to be a subscriber for at least 5 minutes. And the reason why I did that is because I don't want any trolls jumping on. I don't have a moderator like a lot of big channels do that watch for that kind of stuff, so you do have to be a subscriber. Hi, Jan. Jan, I met you years ago, and I know you make incredible mini albums. Okay, well, it's 1:01 p.m. I am a punctual person, if nothing else, and I want to go ahead and get started and welcome you all to the Easy Pace class. I know everybody that's here that's said hello so far is a paid member. So, oh, hi, Kathy. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you. So I just want to start out by saying that today's class is open to everyone because it's kind of the kickoff for the Easy Pace class. And there are some people that are sort of on the fence. They want to know a little bit more about the class. So this is a good opportunity for me to explain what you need to prepare for next week and answer any questions that you might have about the class. And my dog is bopping me. Hold on. She's bopping me to be involved. There, she's on my chair. Okay, so a couple of things that I want to clear up first. Where are my notes? You wouldn't believe how much equipment I have here just to try to stream this YouTube. Oh, my word. Here are my notes. Okay. So just to just to go through some basics. And then please, anytime you have questions, just go ahead and type them in. I can see the chat. So this is going to be a weekly class. It's not going to be on YouTube Live. It's going to be on Zoom. And the reason for that is because I want this to be like it's a live class, like we're live and in person, sitting around at a crop or whatever. It's a live in-person class. I want to see you. I want to craft with you. I want you to be able to hop on and ask questions and chat with each other. I really want it to be a fun time. There are so many free tutorials on YouTube on junk journals. I have hundreds of them myself. I know that. But I think that's the difference, is we're going to craft together live. And I personally am excited about that, because especially through the past couple of years with the pandemic and everything, I'm so tired of crafting by myself. So part of this is a selfish thing. I want to meet my subscribers, and I want to craft with you and have fun. Also, I'm responding. I designed the class because of a lot of questions that I saw in different Facebook groups from beginners that were actually overwhelmed by all of the YouTube videos. Which one do I watch first? Who do I watch? There is a lot of free stuff available, definitely, and there's some great teachers out there. But what we're going to do is every week, I called it in my little advertisement, bite-sized chunks. So every week we're going to learn a different junk journal skill, and by the end, I'm thinking maybe it's going to take us 8 weeks, but I'm not sure. It might be longer if we're having a super fun time and there are other skills that we want to learn. We'll keep going for a while, so there's no definite end date. We'll be done when the junk journal is done. But every week we're going to learn a different skill. So, does anybody have any questions so far about how the class is going to be? And while I'm waiting for people to type, if you have any questions, let me tell you some of the topics we're going to be going over. Next week, we're going to start with covers, and I'm going to talk about that. Sorry, I need a haircut. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, and you are going to have kind of homework in between classes. Not really homework. It's fun. I'll give you a list every week of what supplies you need for the following week, so you can go through your house or go to thrift stores or whatever and gather your supplies for the next class if you want to craft along with me. These will be recorded, so you'll have, if you miss one, that's okay. Your paid members will have access to the recordings, so that way you don't get behind. So some of the topics we're going to talk about how to do a variety of different covers, what kinds of papers to put inside. We're going to learn some collage basics. We're going to make tags. We're going to learn how to use all kinds of different textiles, laces, trims, buttons, things like that. Pockets, envelopes, belly bands. We're going to try to do a little bit of everything. If I can swing it, if I can set this up somehow, at my sewing machine, I know a really common question is, how do you sew on paper? So we'll do, one day I'll ask you if you have a sewing machine, set it up, and we'll see if we can sew together. So a couple of questions. What day of the week will you be holding these? Okay, good question, Julia. It's going to be every Saturday from 1 to 3 Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully that answers Julia and Kathy's questions. Starting our first official class for paid members is next Saturday then. I also may talk about using digital downloads. A lot of people like those, and I do sell digitals in my shop, so I use them in a lot of my journals. I don't always, but And let's see, what else? Other than that, those are kind of, definitely the one that intimidates people the most is sewing in your signatures. So this is a junk journal class, but we're going to be learning some traditional bookmaking techniques. I'm going to talk about text blocks, signatures, how to sew in signatures. It took me probably 2 years before I nailed my signatures every time, and because I finally figured out a couple of little tricks. They were always loose and wobbly, or they came untied. I really struggled with that, and I think that's the thing that puts a lot of people off with trying to make a book or a junk journal. And so I'm gonna teach you 2 things that I do that make it so easy and actually fun to sew in the signatures. So those are kind of some of the topics that we'll cover. Are there any topics that you guys were hoping that I would cover that I haven't talked about? Just looking at my notes to see what else And one of the things I want to mention too is that the traditional junk journal is primarily made from found and recycled items. And so I've designed the class so that you don't have to go out and buy any supplies, any expensive supplies. You'll be able to just go through your home and gather some fun things. The only thing you will need is a needle and thread. And next week I'll talk about different kinds of threads. So every time we do a new technique, I'll try to recommend products. If there is something you need to buy, like thread, then I'm going to talk about what I use. I'll give you all the resources of where I purchase some of my materials, and some things I do get a wholesale discount that I can pass on to you. But for the most part, I mean, you can use embroidery thread. You can, you're not going to really have to go out and buy anything. The only thing that does make it easier is if you buy an awl, a bookmaker's awl. But even if you have, I don't know, I have a paper piercing tool here that I use sometime, so you just need something that you can poke your signatures in with. So that's really about it. It's going to be, I don't want, the economy is rough right now, and I don't want people to have to go out and buy lots of stuff. So, anything else? Any other questions? This will be a lot more fun on Zoom when I can see all your faces. Some of you, I already know what you look like. Ellen is my mother, everybody. Say hi to Ellen. Teresa is my best friend since we were 16 years old. I'm not going to tell you how long we've been friends. So I have some people here that I know, and then some new people that I don't know very well, but I've seen on Facebook and on my YouTube and things. Could you upload a video of the sewing techniques at some point for reference? Yes, Teresa, that after I teach that class, it's going to be recorded and you'll be able to look at it anytime. So let me, for next week, and continue to ask questions if you have them. For next week, we are going to start on covers. And so let me give you some ideas of what you want to think about for your covers. You have a whole bunch of options. So number one is I have two journals here. There we go. Two journals here that I made from existing books. So this one is a little book that I had, a hardcover book, and whoops, wrong way. The spine it's a soft cover spine covered in some fabric. And I'm going to try to accommodate everything that you that you gather. I'm going to try to explain how to do all of these different methods. Yes, Teresa, leather punch would work. Yep. Just as long as the hole isn't too big. So this one I actually deconstructed an existing book. And then this is one of my digitals here. I put a digital on the front and sewed a little fabric pocket. This is one that you could make if you have a small book on hand that you don't mind tearing apart. This one was an antique book that I liked the cover. And so I just took some gold paint and painted in. It was debossed, and so I painted that in, and I left the spine on it and put a dangle on it. So this is one that you could do too if you have a book with a really pretty cover. This is a nice technique. So that's number one. You can use any existing hardcover book that you might have laying around. The other option is, where did it go? Oh, here we go. This one here, I have so much stuff in my way, microphones and this one here, I made completely from scratch out of chipboard. This is a hard piece of chipboard. I made the spine and I covered it with a distressed piece of fabric, so the spine is hard. Notice the signatures are not showing on this one. This one is a lot more complicated to make than the other ones, but if you want to do this, I will try to explain how to do this. And then the back, and it's just covered with scrapbook paper. And that's kind of what the inside looks like. So if you have chipboard on hand, and you want to make something like this, you can do that. You could also get, just use a cereal box if you want. It's not going to be as rigid, but the same technique would apply, and that's something that you probably have on hand as well. So that's option number two, making everything from scratch. And one of my absolute favorite ones is using file folders to make a journal. So this is a pretty file folder. I loved the top edge here. I love that. This is a pretty file folder, and it's chunky and squishy. The sewing does show on the file folder ones, but this is one of my favorites just because I'm kind of a tactile person. I love the feel of it, and it fits in a purse really nicely. As a matter of fact, I have they sell these decorative folders at Walmart for really cheap. I just bought these called Arid Ivy. Really pretty, so I'm going to be making a junk journal with these too. So file folders is option 3. And then lastly, if you want to do, I don't have one made, but if you want to do one that is completely soft, this is a scrap of wallpaper, or you can use scrapbook paper, and then it's sewn to a piece of canvas. I don't know if you can see the sewing up there. So this makes kind of a wallet size, so it would fold like this and then over like that, and the sewing will show through here. You know what? I think I do have one. Hang on one sec. Here we go. This is one that I made using that technique. So this is wallpaper, and it's folded over wallet style, and there are my signatures right there. Okay, so those are your 4 options for next week. You can get an existing book, you can get some cardboard or chipboard to make your own front and back cover and spine. You can get some file folders, you can get some fabric, and I will try to cover all of those. The techniques are basically the same. There's some variation, you know. And the easiest thing to do too is to choose a size. So especially if you're using an existing book, make sure it's not more than 9 inches tall. So decide also how big you want your book to be, how tall you want it to be. Do you want it to be a small chunky thing that you can fit in your purse? Do you want it to be something really big that can sit on your coffee table? You know, what size do you want your journal to be? And the reason why I say no taller than 9 inches is because the easiest thing to do if you're just starting out and you just really want to make it easy on yourself, the easiest thing to do is to find a variety of papers, cut them down 8.5 by 11, just a traditional size, and when you fold them in half, that's a signature. So it would fit it would fit this kind of book. So decide what size you want to. Any questions so far? And have any of you already decided what kind of book you want to make? Or are you going to have to go away and think about it? Let me take a sip of tea. Okay, looks like maybe there's no questions, or I do have it on delay, so maybe those questions will come in. There is also something that you want to think about, which I'll get you started on now, because it may take you a couple of weeks to gather some things together. But let's just talk very briefly about papers. I do have a video that I will link you to that talks about different kind of papers you can use in your journals. But in this journal here that I showed you, let me show you. I didn't use any expensive papers at all. But let's see. I have so much stuff in my way. No, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it that way. Let me do it this way. Just hold them up one at a time. I have a journal that's deconstructed and all my papers are here. So let me just show you. So one of the obvious things to use would be scrapbook paper. And this is fun to take, and if you have your regular 12 by 12 piece, you fold over the extra flap and then fold it in half, and you have a pocket. So scrapbook paper is super fun, and I would say don't go cutting anything down yet, because we will be learning things like this. So So don't cut everything into 8.5 by 11. Keep it the size, and we'll cut the papers together. So scrapbook paper is always a great idea. I have some of those adult coloring books around, and I like to put those papers in there because then I can color in my journal if I want to and do some artwork in the journal. So if you have any of these coloring books around, or even plain watercolor paper, that's fun. Again, think about what you want to do with the journal. Are you going to journal in it? Are you going to gift it to someone? Are you going to put photos in it, or ticket stubs, or what are you going to use it for? And then wrapping paper is really fun. This is a super pretty wrapping paper, and so I used that and wrapped it around one of my signatures. That's falling out. So any kind of wrapping paper that you might have on hand, even if it's used and all crinkly is fun. What size is the file one you made? That's a good question. It is, this one here is 4.5 by 6.5. 4.5 wide by 6.5 high. So I did cut the file folder down a little bit. And then the spine on this one it's a 1-inch spine. And okay, what else? This is also some wrapping paper that's a little more, I don't think you're going to be able to see the pattern, but I like on the inside it's got graph paper on the inside, which makes that really fun for journaling. It gives you some lines. What else do I have here? Scrapbook paper. Most of this is scrapbook paper. This is a piece of just white cardstock that I stamped on. I stamped a fern on. And what thread is recommended in the binding? Well, we're going to talk about that in detail when we get to the sewing of the signatures, but I'll show you what I use. You can use any kind of thread that you want as long as it's not elastic. If there's any give to it, it's not going to hold your signatures in. So a lot of people do use embroidery thread. I don't personally like embroidery thread for that reason. I don't feel it holds tight enough. It sort of gives after a period of time. So I use this waxed linen thread. Waxed linen thread. But you can use baker's twine. What else? Well, you can really use anything you want, except regular thread, regular sewing machine thread is going to be too thin. So something that, I don't know if this is, I don't know if you're going to be able to see how thick this is, but you see that it's a little thicker than regular sewing thread. So I hope that answers your question. We will get into it in more detail before the week before it's time to sew in the signatures. And I'll be starting a supplies list too of where I buy my supplies. So if you did want to actually get the waxed linen thread, you'll be able to do that. I have just regular lined paper. It's always fun. And oh, by the way, I need to put that on my list. We're going to talk about coffee and tea staining paper as well, because if you want to get more of a vintage look, and like a lot of my journals are vintage, if you want to kind of get that distressed look and have a tea and coffee stained paper to make it look old, we'll be talking about that too. And then in my vintage journal, and you might want to also think about, are you more of a girly girl where you want, something pretty like this, or are you more of a vintage person where you want to make a vintage journal? Start thinking about your style, what's going to speak to you so that you really enjoy creating this. And you can go on Pinterest and look up junk journals and you'll see just thousands of different styles. And, so think about what's going to be the most fun for you to make. But I prefer vintage. We'll go over things like, you see how I sewed this on the edge of the paper. We'll go through things like that. You see here I have some other goodies sticking out. This is cheesecloth. We'll have some fun doing embellishing. But here I have I do like shopping at antique stores. If I find a bargain, I'll pick up some supplies. So I do have some vintage ledger paper. And this is not necessary, but I do have de-stash kits in my shop available where you can buy some antiques, actual antiques from my stash. If you do want to go with a vintage style and you maybe don't have anything available, you can look at my de-stash kits. But again, totally not necessary. I'm not trying to sell you anything there. It is nice to have some old book pages. Let me see. Whoops. Some old book pages. That's this one. And I have some vintage ads in here too. What other things? I mean, that gives you, hopefully that gives you a good frame of reference. There's some coffee stained paper with an antique book page. So, and there's some more just fun sewing. Sorry, I'm having a hard time with all this stuff in my way. Yeah, there we go. There's some sewing, stamping. So, yeah. Raffia. Raffia is really fun. Yeah. Yeah, what else? You guys have any other ideas? There's so much. Dental floss. Do I ever use dental floss? No, the answer is no. I think you could. It depends on how elastic it is, and definitely I wouldn't use well, I guess you could use the waxed dental floss because my linen thread here is waxed, so maybe you could use waxed dental floss. I've never tried it. That's a very good question. It wouldn't hurt to try it, especially the mint flavored one. Then your book could smell good. Your book could be all minty instead of smelling like coffee. I tea stain because I personally cannot stand the smell of coffee. It's a long story, but yeah. Thanks. The supply list would be very helpful. Yes, you will. Everybody will be getting a supply list, definitely. But I'm not going to put everything on the list all at once because I think that will be too overwhelming. Again, we're doing bite-sized chunks. So for next week, after this class today, for next week, everybody who's a paid member will receive a list of the things that I discussed today in terms of your covers and things to gather together for next week. And every week you'll get a list of what to prepare for the following week, because I want to make it really just less overwhelming, I guess. So, any other questions? And I don't know if I mentioned it, that all of the future classes are going to be on Zoom. And every week, along with your supply list, you will get a link to click, and it will take you right to the Zoom class. That way, only paid members have access. And it helps keep the group small, too. Any other questions? That's all I really had prepared for today. This is just our kickoff, and when we end here, you'll get your supply lists for next week. Because there's a delay, I'm going to wait. Okay. Well, those of you who are paid members, you have my email address and you know how to contact me, and you can get a hold of me if you have any questions. Tell your friends. We still have a few more slots open, not many, but we have a couple. I want to keep it nice and small and intimate so that I can answer all questions, and it will keep it more fun too. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Next week we'll be on Zoom from 1 to 3 going over our book covers. Oh, how many pages are usually in a signature? That's a good point. Excuse me. It really depends on how wide you want your spine to be. I typically do 3 signatures with about 8 pages in each signature, 8 to 10. If you put too many pages in your signature, then you're going to start to get, let's see, I don't know how I can explain this. You're going to start to get, because they're folded in on themselves like that, you're going to start to get your papers sticking out on the side here. So I like to do smaller signatures, but more of them. So I don't know if that answers your question. There's no hard and fast answer, but I would say 10 or less, depending on the thickness of your paper, so that you don't get that overlap and that bulk. So you can do less pages per signature, but more signatures. I hope that makes sense. Teresa says, I'm looking forward to going antiquing now. Yeah, for old mags and books and maps, postcards,